Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone in their 90s, still laughing, still moving, still present, and thought, how are they still so full of life? And then you see someone at 60, already tired of waking up, drifting through the day like they're waiting for it to end. It's a strange contrast, isn't it? We like to say it's genetics, luck, good fortune. But if we're honest, that's just something we tell ourselves to avoid the harder truth. That how we live each day, quietly, habitually, is what shapes how we age. Not the big things, but the small, almost invisible ones. I once met a man in Okinawa. He was 97, still sharp, still walking the hills near his home every morning. He didn't preach. He didn't have some secret supplement or fancy fitness regime. What he did have? A quiet rhythm. A handful of small, consistent habits that carried him forward. Not because they were trendy, not because they promised results, but because they felt right. That's the difference most of us miss. We wait for change to be dramatic, but life changes slowly, like a tide, one gentle wave at a time. And if we're not paying attention, we might miss that we've drifted away from the shore we once knew. So today, we're not talking about hacks, not magic pills or 10-step plans. We're going to talk about something more honest, more enduring. The 13 habits practiced by the longest living, most joyful people in the world. Habits so quiet and human that anyone, yes, anyone, can begin them. Today, you won't have to move to some exotic island. You won't need to overhaul your entire lifestyle or run marathons. In fact, if you try too hard, you'll probably miss the point. This is about choosing life, gently, each day. Learning to move in ways that don't exhaust you. Eating in ways that don't punish your body, resting without guilt, connecting without judgment, laughing when it's easier to frown, giving when it feels like no one sees. It's not about adding more to your plate. It's about choosing better ingredients for the life you already have. Some of what we'll talk about might feel too simple. That's okay. Simplicity is often what we need most, especially when the world keeps shouting for more. So if you've ever found yourself wondering, is it too late to start over? Or, what if I'm already too far gone? I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. You're right on time. And this journey, it starts now. Most people think that staying fit means going to the gym, running on treadmills, lifting weights, sweating buckets. But maybe we've overcomplicated something deeply natural. The truth is, movement doesn't have to be a chore. It can be part of who you are, how you live. A friend of mine, Tom, changed my mind about this. He's 55. He's never stepped inside a gym. Yet his energy is steady, his posture upright, his body surprisingly strong. His secret? He never lets himself stay still for too long. He moves, naturally, consistently, without making it a big deal. He walks to the store instead of driving. He tends to his tiny garden in the mornings. He parks farther away, not out of inconvenience, but because he chooses to move. He climbs stairs. He stretches while the kettle boils. Not once has he mentioned working out. But every day his body works with him, not against him. It reminded me of something I saw in Okinawa. People in their 80s and 90s still tending gardens, still squatting low with ease, still using their bodies with grace. They don't exercise. They simply don't stop moving. And science? It agrees. A study from the University of California showed that standing up once an hour reduces the risk of early death significantly. Think about that. just standing up, not running a 10K, not doing yoga, just refusing to be sedentary for too long. Movement, when it's natural, doesn't demand discipline. It becomes part of you, like breathing or blinking. It's not about burning calories. It's about keeping the engine warm. Tom once told me, "When I move, even a little, I feel awake again, like my brain gets a breath of fresh air." And I felt that. Sometimes I dance in the kitchen when I'm tired. Sometimes I take the stairs not because I should, but because I can. That shift, I get to move, instead of I have to move, is where the magic lives. And it's not just physical. Natural movement clears your mind. It shakes off stress. It unlocks creativity you didn't know was stuck. Even the smallest actions count. Stretch while brushing your teeth. Walk barefoot in the grass. Take the long way home. Not to waste time, but to give your body what it craves. You don't need a gym membership. You don't need a fitness tracker. You don't need permission. You need willingness. To remember that your body isn't just a vessel. It's a rhythm. And every small move is a vote for vitality. One step, one stretch, one choice at a time. There's a quiet kind of ache that settles into our bones when we don't know why we're waking up each morning. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, but it lingers. A kind of emptiness that coffee can't cure and vacations can't fix. A friend of mine, Linda, shared something that stuck with me. She had just retired, decades of work behind her. Her days were suddenly wide open, and yet she told me she felt lost, not because she missed the job, but because she no longer felt needed. Until she stumbled upon a Japanese word, ikigai. It means a reason for being. Not just what you're good at, not just what pays, but that sacred overlap, where your passions, your strengths, your service to others, and your livelihood all meet. For Linda, that was mentoring young families. She'd raised 4 kids, made plenty of mistakes, learned even more, and now she spent her time helping others avoid the same missteps. She didn't do it for praise. She did it because it made her feel alive again. And here's what science tells us. People who have a strong sense of purpose live longer. 15% longer, in fact, according to a study from Rush University. That's not just a statistic. It's a wake-up call. If you're drifting, wondering what your place in the world is, start with questions, not answers. What do I love? What am I naturally good at? What does the world need more of? And what could I get paid for? Even a little. Write them down. 4 circles. Where they meet might just point you toward your ikigai. And don't worry, your purpose doesn't have to be loud. You don't have to change the world. You just have to care about something deeply enough to move toward it every day. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's baking. Maybe it's building something with your hands, or teaching, or simply being the steady presence someone else depends on. The people in Okinawa understand this well. Some find purpose in caring for grandchildren. Others paint, sing, or garden. Not because someone asked them to, but because it gives the day shape. It gives the heart direction. Your ikigai can evolve. It's not a job title. It's not fixed. It grows with you, just like the seasons. And some seasons are quiet. That's okay. Start small. Smile at someone who looks like they've forgotten how. Write a note. Plant something. You don't need applause. You need alignment. Because when you have a reason to get up that isn't about bills or obligation, your body changes. Your spirit changes. And suddenly, life feels like something you're in, not something you're surviving. Ikigai is not about perfection. It's about presence. Being here, doing something that matters to you, even if no one claps. That's enough. Stress rarely shows up with a loud knock. It creeps in quietly, through tight shoulders, shallow breaths, sleepless nights. And the longer it stays, the more it convinces you that this is just how life is now. But it isn't. It doesn't have to be. I once read that chronic stress is like acid rain. It slowly corrodes from the inside out. Your body might keep going, but underneath, your cells are aging faster than they should. Your energy fades, your patience shortens, your joy gets dull around the edges. We often think stress is the price we pay for responsibility. But what if peace isn't the opposite of productivity? What if it's the foundation? In Okinawa, I watched elderly couples move through their day with such grace. They weren't rushing. They weren't multitasking. They were present, fully. One woman told me she practices slow breathing every morning. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 8 counts out. It sounds simple, but try it. It's like pressing reset on your entire nervous system. In Icaria, Greece, they take naps after lunch, not out of laziness, but because they understand that rest is not weakness, it's wisdom. Back home, I started to test these ideas. I stopped checking my phone the moment I woke up. I went outside, barefoot in the grass just for a minute. I let myself sit in silence without music, without distraction. And slowly, something shifted. I didn't become someone else. I just came back to myself. Stress didn't vanish, but I stopped giving it the front seat in my life. You don't need to quit your job or run away to a cabin in the woods. What you need is to reclaim your rhythm. Create pauses in your day that belong to you. A cup of tea you don't rush through, a walk without a podcast, 5 minutes with your eyes closed, breathing deeply and doing nothing else. Let your body remember what calm feels like. Because here's the truth. You can't eliminate all pressure, but you can learn to soften around it, to ride it like a surfer rides a wave, not resisting, not collapsing, but balancing. And when you do, your body responds. It heals. It resets. It remembers that it wasn't designed to live in fight or flight forever. Don't wait until burnout forces you to change. Choose rest before rest becomes mandatory. Stress will knock, but peace can answer, if you let it. Most of us grew up hearing, "Finish everything on your plate," as if an empty plate meant success. But maybe fullness isn't the goal. Maybe feeling satisfied, not stuffed, is what keeps us alive longer. During a quiet lunch in Okinawa, I learned about a tradition called harahachi, boo. A simple but powerful practice of stopping when you're 80% full. Not when you're bursting, not when you can't move, but when you feel just enough. At first, it felt strange. We're so used to eating until we feel done. But by the time our brain registers fullness, we've often gone too far. Our bodies aren't machines. They need time. Time to sense, to signal, to say, "That's enough." What surprised me most is how not full started to feel better than completely full. I had more energy. I didn't feel sluggish. My focus improved. It's like my body wasn't working overtime just to digest. It finally had room to breathe. One local elder told me, "If you give your stomach a little space, you give your heart more peace." That landed hard. Because overeating isn't just about food, it's about not listening to our bodies, not honoring the quiet signal that says, "Hey, that's enough." And here's what's wild. Science backs this up. Studies show that moderate calorie intake reduces aging, supports cellular repair, and decreases chronic disease risks. It's not a diet. It's a rhythm. Practicing hara hachi-bu doesn't require measuring calories or counting bites. It starts with awareness, slowing down, chewing, tasting, noticing. Use a smaller plate. Drink a glass of water before you begin. Turn off distractions. Yes, even your phone. And ask yourself mid-meal, am I still hungry? Or just used to eating more? The more I practiced, the more I realized that this wasn't about restriction. It was about respect. Respect for my body. Respect for the effort it takes to digest, process, and carry me through the day. We don't need to chase the feeling of being full. We need to return to the feeling of being in control, of choosing how much, instead of being driven by habit or hurry. There's an ancient Roman saying, too. During banquets, a whisperer would stand behind guests, reminding them not to overindulge. Today, we don't have whisperers. But maybe we can become our own. Ask gently. Pause halfway. Listen. Because the most powerful nourishment isn't always what's on the plate. It's what you choose to honor while eating. And when we learn to stop at 80%, we're not missing out. We're making space for energy, for clarity, for longevity. There was a time in my life when I couldn't hear myself think. My days were noise, emails, deadlines, notifications. Even when things were quiet, my mind was shouting, thoughts running wild, jumping from one worry to another like a monkey in a cage. I didn't need more caffeine. I didn't need another productivity app. I needed space. And that's when I found meditation, not in a temple or a yoga class, but in the silence between two anxious breaths. At first, I didn't get it. Sitting still, doing nothing, it felt like wasting time. But maybe that was the point. Maybe the most powerful thing I could do was pause. During a trip to a village in Japan, I noticed something different in the people there. They moved slower, but not lazy. They spoke less, but with intention. They seemed anchored. When I asked how, one old man simply smiled and said, "We breathe." Meditation is not about escaping life. It's about finally arriving in it. You don't need incense or a special cushion. You don't need to chant in Sanskrit. You just need you, your breath, your attention, and 5 quiet minutes of honesty. I started small, 5 minutes each morning, just breathing. Thoughts would come, and I'd let them pass, like clouds in the sky, not storms to chase. It wasn't magical, not at first, but over time the noise got softer. I began to notice things I used to miss. The sound of birds, the way sunlight lands on a desk, the stillness beneath my own chaos. Even my sleep changed, my focus sharpened, my patience, once thin as thread, began to stretch. Science backs it up too. Meditation reduces stress hormones, improves memory, even rewires parts of the brain linked to emotional regulation. It's not spiritual fluff, it's mental fitness. Steve Jobs did it, Oprah, Kobe. Not because it made them holy, but because it made them present. And presence is a superpower in a distracted world. If you think you don't have time to meditate, you probably need it most. And if your mind won't shut up, don't worry. Mine didn't either. That's why we practice. One breath, one return. Each time you catch yourself drifting, that's not failure. It's the rep. Like lifting a mental dumbbell again and again. The goal isn't to become someone else. It's to meet the you underneath all the noise. And once you do, once you feel that quiet place inside you, you'll want to go back. Not to escape life, but to move through it with more peace, more clarity, more grace. That's meditation, not perfection, just presence. We talk about sleep like it's a luxury, something we'll catch up on later. But here's the thing, later doesn't always come. Sleep isn't a break from life. It's where life repairs itself. Every hour you rest is a silent investment in tomorrow's energy, clarity, and resilience. I used to wear my exhaustion like a badge of honor. Late nights, early mornings, always on. I thought pushing harder meant achieving more. But what I didn't realize was that I was running on fumes, pretending it was fuel. Then I visited Greece. One evening, an old man poured me tea and asked, "When was the last time you slept like the world wasn't ending?" I didn't have an answer, but I had a lump in my throat. Because he wasn't asking about sleep, he was asking about surrender. In blue zones, people don't just sleep more, they sleep well, consistently, intentionally, not by accident, but by ritual. Sleep is when the brain cleans itself. It's when your body repairs cells, resets hormones, strengthens memory, and flushes out the day's toxins, physical and emotional. Skipping it isn't just about being tired. It's about aging faster, healing slower, thinking foggier. But the good news? You don't need sleep hacks or expensive supplements. You need rhythm. Go to bed at the same time every night. Yes, even on weekends. Turn your room into a cave, cool, dark, quiet. Put your phone away. Better yet, leave it in another room. The blue light isn't rest, it's digital caffeine. Create a signal that tells your brain it's time to slow down. Maybe that's reading a few pages. Maybe it's light stretching or breathing in silence under dim light. Let your nervous system know we're done for today. We made it. We can rest now. And if sleep doesn't come easily, don't fight it. Lay still. Let your body soften. Let your breath slow. Tell yourself, this is enough for now. I used to think sleep was unproductive. Now I see. It's the most productive thing I do. Because without it, everything else starts to crumble. You can skip breakfast. You can miss a workout. But skip sleep long enough, and your body will remind you who's in charge. The Stoics believed in alignment with nature. And there's nothing more natural than the sun setting and us slowing down with it. You're not lazy for sleeping. You're wise for listening. Sleep doesn't mean weakness. It means trust. Trust that you've done enough, that the world will keep spinning, that you deserve to rest without earning it. Tonight, give yourself permission to rest deeply, not just for the sake of surviving but so you can wake up ready to truly live. Sometimes the most powerful medicine grows quietly in the soil. No marketing, no fancy packaging, just sunlight, water, and time. In Sardinia, I sat at a long wooden table under grapevines. The elders served dish after dish, bright with color, full of life. Beans, tomatoes, herbs, a bit of cheese, a glass of red wine, hardly any meat, and no one seemed to miss it. What struck me wasn't just what they ate, but how they ate, slowly, together, with gratitude. Here's what most people don't realize. Food isn't just fuel. It's a signal to your body, to your cells, to your future self. Every bite either supports your longevity or burdens it. Plant-based eating doesn't mean restriction, it means abundance. It means filling your plate with color, texture, and variety. Leafy greens that boost circulation, root vegetables that ground you, fruits that cleanse, legumes that strengthen. No, you don't have to give up meat entirely. People in blue zones still enjoy it, just in small amounts, on rare occasions. It's not about purity. It's about proportion. 95% of what they eat comes from plants, not because they're following trends, but because it's how their grandparents lived, because it works. Science backs it up too. A diet rich in plants lowers the risk of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, It supports healthy aging. It strengthens the gut. It even sharpens the mind. And here's the beautiful part. You can start small. One extra vegetable per meal, 1 day a week without meat, one swap, chips for carrots, soda for herbal tea. You don't need to become a nutritionist. You just need to pay attention. Ask yourself, does this food leave me lighter or heavier? Does it help me heal or slow me down? Do I feel nourished or just full? One of the best lessons I learned was from a woman in her 90s. She said, I eat food that would still grow even if I forgot to water it. It's stubborn like me. And maybe that's what we need. Stubborn food, rooted food, food that remembers where it came from. In a world obsessed with quick fixes, slow food is an act of rebellion. A reminder that longevity doesn't come in a bottle, it comes in a bowl. And you don't need to move to Italy or grow your own spinach. You just need to choose differently. At the market, at the table, at the next bite. This is how you eat to live, not to impress, not to restrict, but to honor the one body you've been given. Eat color, eat life, eat like you love yourself. There's something timeless about a shared meal. Laughter echoing off walls, hands passing warm plates, stories lingering longer than the food. And sometimes, just sometimes, there's wine. Not to escape, but to connect. In the hills of Tuscany, I sat at a dinner table older than I was. A local family poured glasses of red, not to impress, not to numb, but to savor. Each sip was slow, each smile was real. Wine, in the blue zones, isn't a vice. It's a vessel, for communion, for ritual, for joy. But let's be clear, it's not the wine itself. It's the people, the moment, the pause. Red wine contains resveratrol, yes, an antioxidant linked to heart health and longevity. But science only explains part of it. The rest lives in what can't be measured, in eye contact, in laughter, in the warmth that only comes when people feel seen. And here's the secret. Wine is never drunk alone in these places. It's shared, over meals, with stories, in stillness. Because isolation corrodes the soul. Loneliness isn't just sad, it's dangerous. Studies show it's as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Let that sink in. So while the world keeps speeding up, eating on the go, talking through screens, these long-living cultures slow down to eat together, to toast, to listen. You don't need a vineyard or an ancient recipe, you need intention. Invite someone over, serve simple food, pour a glass of whatever brings ease, and be there, fully, or join a class, a dance, a reading circle. It doesn't matter where, only that you show up. Because here's what most of us miss. Connection isn't about quantity, it's about presence. One meal with someone who listens is worth more than 100 shallow conversations. If you don't drink, that's fine. The wine is symbolic. Tea works, water, anything. What matters is the table, the gathering, the human moment. The Roman philosopher Seneca said, "No joy can be truly enjoyed alone." He was right. So whether it's dinner with friends, a walk with a neighbor, or just calling someone you've been meaning to, do it. Not to fill time, but to remember what it means to be human. Life doesn't ask for extravagance, it asks for attention and shared joy. So raise your glass, whatever's in it, to presence, to friendship, to the kind of moments that stretch life not in years, but in depth. There's a kind of wealth that doesn't live in banks. You can't count it. You can't lock it away, but you feel it in how your heart expands when you give, even when you have little. Generosity isn't about money. It's not about grand gestures. It's a way of being, a way of moving through the world that says, I see you, I care. The Stoics knew this well. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "What's not good for the hive is not good for the bee." In other words, your well-being is tied to the well-being of others. During a visit to a small village in South America, I saw this truth come alive. People didn't have much, but they shared what they had, without hesitation. A seat at the table, a warm bowl of soup, a smile that felt like sunlight. It reminded me, generosity isn't measured in value. It's measured in spirit. Even science agrees. A study from the University of California found that people who give regularly have lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone. Every act of giving is a quiet reset, a message to your body that says, we are safe, we are whole. Generosity doesn't drain you, it refills you. Not always instantly, but eventually, and often in ways you didn't expect. When I started giving more, of my time, my attention, even just kind words, my world felt softer. I noticed more beauty. I held on to less bitterness. It was as if giving made space for gratitude to grow. And no, you don't have to be Bill Gates. You don't need a charity or a platform. You just need presence. Check in on someone. Offer help without being asked. Forgive quietly. Share something you value, even if it's just your time. Real generosity asks for sincerity, not size. It's not about applause. It's about connection. And sometimes, generosity circles back in ways you don't see coming. You help someone, and 5 years later, you're helped when you need it most. Not out of obligation, but because what you gave grew. In blue zones, generosity is woven into daily life. Neighbors know each other. Elders teach the young. People give, not because they're rich, but because they're human. The most generous people I've met weren't always the loudest or the most successful. They were the ones who looked up when someone walked into the room, who listened, who showed up. So today, ask yourself, what do I have that someone else needs? Not just possessions, but attention, encouragement, time. Because giving doesn't take from you, it deepens you. And in a world that often feels shallow, that depth is everything. As a child, reading felt like a chore, something you had to do for school, a task, a test, a ticking clock. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. I picked up a book, not for grades, not for approval, but to escape, and then to return, not to another place, but to myself. Reading is a quiet kind of time travel. You sit still, but you move through lifetimes. You see through other eyes. You feel things you've never lived and understand them like you did. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once said, "Reading nourishes the soul." He was right. A recent study showed that people who read regularly live, on average, 2 years longer than those who don't. Not because books add minutes to the clock, but because they add meaning to the minutes. Reading isn't just a hobby, it's mental weightlifting. Every word, a representative. Every page, a step into empathy, clarity, and growth. In Ireland, I visited a small town where the library was the heart of everything. Not the pub, not the cafe, the library. Elders came not just to read, but to be surrounded by stories, to learn, to remember, to feel. And I thought, what a powerful thing it is to choose silence filled with thought, rather than noise filled with nothing. You don't need to read philosophy or heavy nonfiction. You just need something that moves you, something that stirs something inside. It could be a novel that reminds you of who you were, a poem that helps you grieve, a memoir that tells you you're not alone, 15 minutes before bed, while your coffee brews, while you wait in line, It's not about finishing books. It's about feeding your spirit. Warren Buffett reads 80% of his day, and yet people say they don't have time to read. The truth is, we all do. We just forget to give ourselves permission to pause. Reading stretches the mind the way yoga stretches the body. It brings oxygen to your thoughts. It sharpens your voice. It softens your judgment. The more you read, the less quickly you judge. The more you understand that every person is carrying something you can't see. And some author somewhere has put it into words. Books are bridges between people, between centuries, between who you are and who you're becoming. You don't need to finish the book. You just need to begin. And maybe tomorrow, begin again. Because in the quiet of a page turning, you just might find the sound of your own voice, stronger, wiser, and ready for the next chapter. Comfort feels good, until it doesn't. It starts as a warm blanket, but stay wrapped in it too long, and it becomes a cage, a quiet trap that whispers, don't risk it, don't stretch, stay small. But the truth, growth never happens inside your comfort zone. It begins at the edge of discomfort, right where fear and possibility shake hands. The Stoic philosopher Seneca said, "We do not dare to do things because they are difficult. They are difficult because we do not dare." I used to avoid discomfort. New places, new skills, even new conversations that might stir something I wasn't ready to feel. But then life did what it always does. It pushed me, and I had a choice: hide or walk into the unknown. So I started small. One awkward introduction, one dish I'd never tried, one decision that made my heart beat a little faster. And something strange happened. The more I stepped out, the more I felt alive. Not perfect, not fearless, just present, engaged, awake. I remember attending a traditional tea ceremony in Japan. I didn't know the customs. I felt clumsy, out of place. But each gesture, each pause, it slowed me down, made me listen, brought me into a world I never would have seen if I hadn't dared to enter it. Getting out of your comfort zone isn't about thrill-seeking. It's about growth, courage, perspective. And science supports this too. Studies show that people who regularly try new things, no matter how small, report higher satisfaction, better mental health, and stronger cognitive function. It's like cross-training for the soul. You don't need to jump out of a plane. You just need to say yes to something unfamiliar. Even once a week. Talk to the neighbor you've always walked past. Take a different route to work. Speak up in a room where you usually stay silent. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be different. And when fear shows up, because it will, don't treat it as a stop sign. Treat it as a guidepost. Fear means you're on the edge of something that matters. Every time you move past fear, your world gets wider. You trust yourself more. You become the kind of person who says, "I didn't know how, but I tried anyway." And isn't that what living fully really means? So today, ask yourself, what's one small thing you've been avoiding? And what might happen if you just tried? Your comfort zone will always wait for you. But life? It's waiting outside the lines. There's a reason why we feel tired, even when we haven't moved all day. Why we lie in bed scrolling and still feel disconnected. Why we're surrounded by messages, voices, notifications, and yet feel profoundly alone. The truth is, we're overconnected to everything, except ourselves. Technology isn't the enemy. It's a tool, a brilliant one. But even a sharp blade needs a sheath. Even a candle needs to be blown out. I've spent years creating content, crafting stories, using platforms that rely on screens. But the moments I remember most clearly: a weekend without my phone, a walk by the beach without headphones, a conversation where no one reached for a device, just eye contact, stillness, presence. In Rome, philosophers walked without distraction. They watched shadows move. They listened to silence. They gave their thoughts space to form. And space is something we've forgotten how to give. Today, even when we're offline, our minds are still on call, waiting for the next buzz, the next like, the next reminder that we exist, digitally. But what if we could exist, inwardly, deliberately? A study from the University of California found that even having your phone in the same room, even off, lowers cognitive function. That's how deep the pull runs. Your brain is waiting, listening, bracing, and that's why disconnecting isn't just healthy, it's vital. Start small. No screens for the first 30 minutes after you wake up, and the last hour before sleep. Eat without a screen, walk without music, talk with someone, and let the phone face down, untouched. It will feel strange at first. You'll reach for it out of habit. But after a while, you'll feel something return. Your breath, your attention, your peace. We weren't designed to absorb this much noise. We're still ancient minds, walking in a digital storm. We need shelter. And when you give yourself that shelter, a quiet morning, a full afternoon off the grid, a weekend where the only notifications are birds singing, you remember how rich real life is, how beautiful boredom can be, how ideas bloom in silence, how presence feels heavier and more meaningful than any trending post. You don't need to delete everything. You don't need to vanish. You just need to choose moments that are yours, sacred, unshared, undocumented. Because the moments we don't post are often the ones that shape us most. So here's the challenge. 1 hour today. 1 hour that belongs to you. No phone, no input, just you, your senses, and this wild, beautiful, messy world. You'll be surprised what you hear when you stop listening to everything else. Have you ever noticed how children laugh for no reason? Not because something's funny, but because they're alive, because their joy hasn't yet been silenced by logic or deadlines or fear of looking foolish. Kids laugh over 300 times a day. Adults, maybe 15 on a good one. So what changed? Not the world. United States. We stopped noticing the ridiculous, stopped pausing long enough to let joy bubble up. We started measuring happiness with success, with achievements, with someday. But laughter doesn't wait for someday. It lives in now. I remember sitting on a train in Italy, across from an older couple. They laughed the entire ride, about nothing in particular, her elbow nudging his side, his eyes crinkling like paper. They weren't performing. They were remembering how light life can feel when you let it. Laughter doesn't need an audience. It needs permission. And here's what's powerful. Science shows laughter reduces stress, strengthens immunity, improves cardiovascular health, and even dulls pain. It's a natural high, a chemical reset, a free gift from your body to your mind. The Stoics weren't known for their humor, but even they understood the value of lightness. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish." That's the gateway to joy, to laugh without fear of being misunderstood. But we've been trained to be serious, to prove, to protect, to hold our emotions like glass. But laughter cracks the glass and lets the light in. You don't have to force it. Just look for it, in the awkward, in the ordinary, in yourself. Laugh when the toast burns, when you trip over your own shoelace, when the day doesn't go as planned, and thank God it didn't. Joy lives in the space where expectations let go and presence takes over. And if laughter doesn't come easily right now, that's okay. Start with a smile, a breath, a memory that warms. Joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it hums quietly beneath the noise. The Italians have a word, sprezzatura, effortless grace. To laugh is to live with sprezzatura. To say, I know life is hard, but I'll smile anyway, because this world is serious enough. And your laughter, it matters more than you think. So give yourself permission today to be light, to look silly, to feel joy, even when it doesn't make sense. Because when you laugh, your body heals, your heart opens, and your life stretches. Not in length, but in depth. You've just walked through 13 habits. Not rules, not checklists, but quiet invitations to come back to what matters. Movement, purpose, sleep, joy, each one a small decision, each one a whisper in a world full of noise. None of these habits promise perfection. They don't erase pain. They don't stop time, but they stretch life into something fuller, deeper, more human. We often look for answers in big moments, but it's in the small, repetitive, ordinary things that life reveals its rhythm. So let me ask you this. Which habit are you ready to live, not just learn? Let it be just one. Let it be imperfect. Let it be yours. And if this video stirred something in you, share it. Not for numbers, but because change travels best heart to heart. If you want to walk deeper into this journey with me, subscribe, comment, tell me how you're living, not just surviving. Because in the end, the Stoic path isn't about becoming someone else, it's about returning quietly, slowly to who you were meant to be all along.